Look around you. You have light. You have a telephone. You may be sitting in a cozy room with underfloor heating or air conditioning. It seems normal, but imagine otherwise. Once upon a time, not so long ago, in the heart of Europe, there was a country that had very little. There were no luxurious cities. There was no gold, oil, or seaports. There was no influence in the world. Only mountains, rocks, villages, harsh weather, and many questions. This country was called Switzerland. And then no one could have imagined that one day it would become a symbol of stability, precision, wealth, and silence. The place where the whole world keeps its money. The place where some of the most educated, wealthy, and healthy people on the planet live. Where everything works like clockwork. How is this possible? How could a country with no natural resources, no political influence, and no great past rise so high? It was not an accident, not luck, and certainly not a coincidence. It was an idea. It was patience. It was strategy, and the belief that even a small, neutral country could become an example for the whole world. In this story, we'll show you the way. From humble beginnings, where people built log cabins, herded cattle, and survived the winters as best they could, to the Switzerland we know today. Banks, watches, chocolate, international diplomacy, the highest standard of living, and the least amount of conflict. This isn't just a story. This is a transformation that seemed impossible. Switzerland didn't scream. It counted. It thought. It built slowly but surely. And in the end, it became one of the most successful places on Earth. If you want to know how it happened, stay with us. This story won't just surprise you. It might change the way you think about what power means. Part 1. From mountains to mastery. Before banks, before watches, before chocolate and tourists, there was only silence. Let's go back to the early 1800s. In those days, Switzerland was divided. Small cantons, rural communities, mountains, cold winters, difficult land. There were no colonies, no army, no gold or oil. Just work, a harsh climate, and a habit of survival. The people? Simple, strong, hardy. They lived in the Alps, grazing cows, growing a little grain, making cheese, and preserving whatever they could. Many villages had no roads. Some walked for several hours to get salt. Food was cooked on wood. Water was taken from wells. In winter, snow was melted. But what kept them afloat? Two things: craftsmanship and precision. Even before the world learned about Switzerland, people in these valleys learned to make precise mechanisms, clocks, music boxes, weapon parts. From wood, metal, and patience. This precision became their hope. They had no seas, but they had hands. They had no resources, but they had minds. But even craftsmanship didn't always save. In the 1800s, Europe was raging with wars, revolutions, and crises. Even within Switzerland itself, there was tension. Different cantons, different languages, different religions. Protestants and Catholics. French-speaking, German-speaking, Italian-speaking. And then a vision appeared. The leaders of several cantons, realizing that quarrels would destroy the country, began to act differently. They chose peace. They signed treaties. They agreed on neutrality. They created a constitution. Switzerland did not have the power to dictate world conditions, but it did have something else: stability. And the world noticed. In 1815, the Great Congress of Vienna officially recognized the neutrality of Switzerland. This was the beginning of its new path. Switzerland became a place where no shooting is done, where armies do not march, where you can simply work. This decision seemed modest, but it became fateful, because it is in silence that great things are born. And then, in the second half of the 19th century, development began. Everything was slow, careful, but sure. They built railways between the cantons. They started opening banks, small ones at first, for locals. But later, foreigners also started keeping money in Swiss banks. Why? Because it was quiet here. It was reliable here. They didn't ask too much here. And the world, which was constantly burning with wars, really needed this. At this time, entrepreneurs appeared who thought not only about survival, but also about the future. They opened watch factories. They created new technologies for accuracy. Education became a priority. Even in mountain villages, schools were opened. The universities of Zurich, Geneva, and Lausanne began to train engineers, doctors, and bankers. The government did not build palaces, but infrastructure. Roads to the mountains, tunnels, power plants, water pipelines. But most importantly, the Swiss never forgot the main rule. Everything must work exactly like clockwork, because that's the only way to survive in the mountains. While the world was at war, Switzerland was building. And although it had no oil or empire, it created an empire of trust. And all this thanks to the idea that even a small, quiet country can become great if it believes in its own precision, in its own stability, in its own way. Part 2. The Rise of a Vision. 1971 was a pivotal moment in the world. Not in the Middle East, but in Europe, Switzerland was strengthening its status. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't just like that. Switzerland was made up of 7 main cantons, each with its own administration, culture, and traditions. But these small communities realized that together they were stronger. They agreed on a common union, a federation that held the country together. This decision was key. Each canton retained its freedom, but worked under one flag, one constitution. And this became the basis of stability and peace. In a world that is often turbulent, Switzerland chose the path of lasting harmony. At that time, the country's leaders were thinking not only about the present, but also about the future. They understood that the country had few natural resources, but they had knowledge, labor, and innovation. So they began large-scale projects, building railways between cities, developing the financial sector, and expanding tourism infrastructure. Switzerland began to become an international banking center. People from all over the world began to store their money here because it was safe and secure. Over time, the country became known for its precision watchmaking technology, pharmaceuticals, and innovative companies. In the 1980s, Switzerland also began to attract foreign investors. They created special economic zones where entrepreneurs could operate with minimal taxes and simplified regulations. This attracted many companies from the United States, Japan, and Europe. While other countries focused on mining or large factories, Switzerland chose a different path. It invested in people, education, and clean infrastructure. While other countries were experiencing economic crises, the Swiss built new roads, tunnels, airports, and hotels. In the 1990s, the country actively developed tourism. Ski resorts became world centers, and cities, places for international conferences and business. In parallel, the digital revolution began. Switzerland was one of the first countries to quickly introduce the internet, mobile communications, and modern banking technologies. Thus, Switzerland has not only maintained its independence and stability, but also become one of the most successful countries in the world. Its secret lies not only in mountains and cheese, but in the pursuit of precision, trust, and long-term investment in people and the future. Part 3. The Golden Rise. By the early 2000s, Switzerland was already a well-known country with a strong economy and stable government. It had one of the most powerful banking sectors in the world, a developed transportation system, and a reputation as a safe country with a high quality of life. But Switzerland's leaders had bigger plans. They didn't want to just remain a small country in the heart of Europe. They wanted Switzerland to become a global hub for innovation and business. One of the most iconic projects was the modernization of the transport network. Switzerland created one of the most modern railway tunnels in the world, the Gotthard Tunnel. It connected the north and south of the country, reducing travel times and facilitating trade between regions. This project began in the early 2000s and was completed in 2016. At over 57 kilometers long, the tunnel became the longest railway tunnel in the world. It symbolizes Switzerland's commitment to building the future. The country has also invested heavily in financial technology, with new banks and financial platforms emerging that have quickly adapted to the digital age, making Switzerland an attractive destination for investors from around the world. The 2000s also saw the emergence of new industries such as biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and precision engineering. Companies previously known only in Europe began to conquer global markets. At the same time, the government took a step that changed the real estate market. It was decided to allow foreigners to buy homes in certain regions. This caused a real boom. Buyers from Germany, Italy, China, and Russia began to invest in Swiss real estate. In large cities such as Zurich, Geneva, Basel, new residential complexes, business centers, and shopping areas appeared. Construction was proceeding rapidly. The country was becoming more attractive and modern. In 2008, the global economy experienced a crisis. This crisis also affected Switzerland. Real estate values fell, investors became more cautious, and some projects were put on hold. But Switzerland survived. Thanks to a strong economy, wise government, and a stable banking system, the country quickly recovered. The government supported small and medium-sized businesses and invested in infrastructure and education. By 2010, the country's economy began to grow with renewed vigor. Switzerland became an example for other countries on how to overcome the crisis and build the future. In the 2010s, the country took another big step forward. Switzerland actively developed digital technologies, creating conditions for startups and innovations. New companies appeared here in the field of artificial intelligence, blockchain, and robotics. At the same time, the country retained its traditional beauty and comfort. It remained a place where mountains, nature, and a modern lifestyle combine. Switzerland actively hosted international conferences, events, and forums, becoming a center of international cooperation and diplomacy. In the 2010s, the country confirmed its status as a world leader not only in finance, but also in science, technology, education, and tourism. Switzerland has always been a place where the past meets the future, where people work and live in harmony with nature and innovation. Part 4. Switzerland of the Future, an Unwavering Vision. By 2015, Switzerland was already a world leader in finance, technology, and tourism. The country was renowned for its stability, security, and high quality of life. However, Swiss leaders did not stop there. They had a clear vision to make the country even more innovative, modern, and comfortable to live in. Then came a time that changed the world. The COVID-19 pandemic closed borders, halted travel, and brought economies to a standstill. For a country that depended on tourism, trade, and services, it was a serious challenge. Hotels were empty, and major events had to be postponed. But Switzerland acted quickly and wisely. It introduced strict quarantine measures, organized large-scale testing and vaccination programs. Vaccination was available to everyone, both citizens and workers from other countries. The government quickly switched to digital governance. Many services became available online, which minimized the risks of infection. Tourism has started to return faster than in many other countries. Already in 2021, Switzerland welcomed tourists with strict safety measures. People came to enjoy the clean air, mountains, and culture after a long quarantine. The pandemic has taught Switzerland flexibility and strengthened its position as a country that quickly adapts to new challenges. One of the key projects in recent years has been the development of smart cities. Switzerland is investing in clean energy, electric transport, and digital technologies to improve the quality of life. New residential areas with green areas, cycle paths, and modern schools are emerging. Big tech companies continue to grow here, and the government supports startups in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and medical innovation, creating jobs and attracting talent from around the world. Switzerland is also known for its education and healthcare system. It invests in the development of universities and research centers, training a new generation of specialists. The country remains home to many nationalities. People here live in peace, mutual respect, and cooperation. The crime rate is very low, and the quality of life is one of the highest in the world. Switzerland is not just a country on the map. It is an example of how consistency, wise management, and faith in the future help overcome difficulties and create a brighter world. Instead of waiting for change, Switzerland creates it itself. It is not afraid of risks, invests in innovation, and always looks ahead. That is why people from all over the world come here to live, work, and create. This is a country that combines tradition and modernity, nature and technology, stability and development. Switzerland is the future that has already arrived. Life lessons from Swiss history. 1. The beginning does not define the future. Switzerland began as a small country with limited resources, without large oil reserves or natural wealth. But thanks to a clear vision, it has become one of the most developed countries in the world. And you can start small, but dream really big. 2. Invest in people, not just buildings. Switzerland has always invested in education, healthcare, and social services. The growth of a country goes hand in hand with the growth of its citizens. 3. Prepare for success early. Switzerland built a strong infrastructure, developed transportation, communications, and science long before it became a global center for business and finance. Success comes to those who are prepared. 4. Don't copy the world, surprise it. Switzerland didn't follow the molds of others. It created its own standards in precision, innovation, and quality of life. Be unique. 5. Think decades ahead. Planning, sustainable development, and long-term investment have been the foundation of Swiss prosperity. Don't just think about tomorrow, think about future generations. 6. Don't break down in a crisis, adapt. The country has survived many challenges, wars, economic crises, pandemics. But it has always found the strength to recover and become even better. 7. respect for every employee. From farmers in the Alps to engineers in Zurich, everyone contributes to the development of the country. Success is the result of working together. If Switzerland has been able to become an example of stability and prosperity, then you too can overcome your difficulties. Start one step at a time, and one day the world will admire your success. Thank you for reading this story. If you want to learn more inspiring stories and lessons, I'm always here to help. Remember, even in simple things you can find the power to make big changes.